Good day folks, Sean here from Air Photography. So today is an exciting day. DJI has launched the brand new Avata 2. Alongside of it, we've got a new set of goggles, the Goggles 3, and we have a new motion controller, the DJI Motion 3. Now with the Avata 2, they've done the packages a little bit different. You can buy the Fly More combo, which basically comes with the drone, the Goggles 3, the Motion 3, and one battery. But this year they have a new Fly More combo, a 3 battery version, which basically you get everything that we just talked about. Plus you get an additional 2 batteries, a charging hub, and for the first time with an Avata, you get a case. It's actually a really nice case and it works quite well. Now in this video, we're going to be talking about all 3 components, and throughout the video, I'm going to show you some sample footage. But we're going to start with the drone itself first. We're going to take a look at what's new with it and some of its new features. The first thing you can see, it has a brand new design. It's much more streamlined. The overall footprint is slightly bigger than the original Avata, but you can see looking down at it, it's not quite as thick. It's a little bit more streamlined. That definitely makes it not quite as top heavy. On top of that, we have a new 3-blade prop design, and it's 20 grams lighter. All of that combined makes the drone a little bit more agile and a little bit more stable in the air. Some of these new design enhancements also make the drone much quieter. DJI is rating this at 81 decibels. That's the same decibel rating as the Air 3, and it is definitely noticeably quieter. And that is fantastic because we all know that sometimes these FPV drones can get a little loud and it can make you not want to fly in certain locations. But the Avata 2 is actually quite quiet, relatively speaking, compared to other drones that are similar, and it definitely does not draw as much attention when you're out flying. Another big improvement of the Avata 2 is they have a new battery mechanism, because that was kind of an issue with the original Avata. In the case of an impact, sometimes the battery would pop out. And it's very important that the battery stays in, because if you do have a crash and you need to locate your drone, the drone must remain powered on to use some of the features, such as the beeping, or even if you need to use turtle mode to try and put it upright. But you can see we now have 2 buttons on either side that when installed, it gives you a nice satisfying click, and it seems to be in there very securely. Now, I haven't done any intense crashes with it yet to test to see if the battery does stay in. I did have one crash where I hit a tree and it fell to the ground, and indeed the battery did stay in place. Another new design improvement is they've moved the memory card slot and the USB-C to the bottom, and it's easily accessible now. You can see there's a door we just open up, and we have our USB-C for charging, updating firmware, or transferring content, and we have the memory card slot right below that. No more having to kind of fiddle in there with that 5-blade prop design trying to get the memory card out. So definitely a great new enhancement there as well. The DJI Avata also gets an image quality update. It now has a 1/1.3 inch sensor, similar to what comes inside the DJI Osmo Action 4. That's going to improve image quality all the way around. But they've also included 10-bit D-Log with the Avata 2. The original Avata was only D-Syn-like, but if you're a person who likes to grade your own footage, you can now capture in D-Log 10-bit. On top of that, stabilization gets an improvement with Rocksteady 3.0, and just like the original Avata, you have that feature of horizon leveling. So if you want to get more traditional drone footage with a completely level horizon, you're able to do that in the settings. And just like the original Avata, it is fully compatible with third-party stabilization, GyroFlow. With it, you just disable the onboard stabilization, make sure you're filming in a wide field of view, and you can then import it in and stabilize it in GyroFlow. Now, when it comes to internal memory, they've upgraded that to 46 gigabytes. Now, personally, I would have liked to have seen that at least 64, if not 128. But definitely, that's nice that it has been increased, because if you're out flying and you end up filling up your memory card, you know you can store a fair amount of content. You can do several more flights with that internal memory. Another thing that's new this year is we now have 2 kind of downward-facing, rear-facing sensors. It's very similar to what's on the Mavic 3, the Air 3, and the Mini 4 Pro with its fisheye lenses. So that can kind of see in a large area around it. In addition, we can now get a little more flight time with the Avata 2. It's now rated for 23 minutes of flight time. Now, you're never going to fully get that rated amount of flight time. It's going to depend a lot on the conditions you're flying in, your flying style. But 23 rated minutes is quite good compared to sometimes only a few minutes of a traditional FPV drone. Now, another really interesting feature that they've added with the Avata 2 this year is something called Easy Acro. With Easy Acro, it doesn't matter your skill level, anybody can perform tricky aerial maneuvers, all with a click of a button. It works in conjunction with your Motion 3 once you enable it in the goggle settings. You do so by swiping down from the top and enabling Easy Acro. You can see at the side, at the left-hand side there, we have different options for what kind of aerial maneuver you want to perform. You can do flips and rolls. You can do drifting effects, all while just using the joystick on the Motion 3. For flips and rolls, you can do it while the drone is sitting stationary and hovering, or you can combine that while in flight to get some really interesting footage. But definitely an interesting feature, and I think a lot of people who like flying with the motion controller, being able now to do some aerial tricks that you just weren't able to do before with a motion controller, I think people are going to really enjoy that. Now, the way we charge the Avata got an upgrade this year. With the original Avata, it came with its own separate charger, but now we can charge the battery while it's installed in the drone just by using the USB-C. And plus on top of that, you can purchase the charging hub. It comes standard with the 3-battery version of the Fly More combo, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to purchase this separately down the road as well. This charging hub works the same way as the charging hub for the Air 3 or the Mini 4 Pro. You can plug it in and it'll charge one battery at a time, but this charging hub can be used as a power bank as well. So you can plug a device into the USB-C, say your smartphone is getting a little low in power, you can top it off. Plus it has that power consolidation feature. With it, you can put batteries in at different levels, press and hold the power button, and what that's going to do is try and console all the power from all 3 batteries into one. And that's a really great feature that can sometimes allow you to get an extra flight in. And lastly, another feature that they've added to the drone is the ability to use quick transfer. So if you want to transfer content over to your smartphone or tablet, all you have to do is launch the DJI Fly app. It'll make a connection over Wi-Fi, and then you can transfer all your content over fast and efficiently. So let's go ahead here and we'll talk about the new goggles that DJI released alongside the Avata 2. These are now called the DJI Goggles 3, and there's a lot of improvements with them as well. And a lot of these improvements I think people are going to be really pleased with. The biggest thing that you're going to notice here is we now have 2 cameras on the front of the goggles. What that does is enable a feature that DJI calls Real View, and you can switch into Real View to get a sense of surrounding. You no longer have to take the goggles off to know what's going on around you. And you can enable Real View by a simple double tap on either side of the goggles. That will turn Real View on, and then to turn it off, just another double tap. You can also use the Motion 3 to enable Real View. If we take a look at the scroll wheel there, a double press on it will enable Real View as well. Now when it comes to Real View, there's a couple different options. In the settings, you can go in and enable picture-in-picture if that's how you prefer to use it. By default, it's displaying a 2D image, a flat image that looks really good actually. But you can also enable 3D that kind of mimics VR. And it actually is really interesting. It looks really good. Now I can't really demonstrate what it looks like because you're going to be watching this on a 2D screen, but it's pretty impressive how it looks. Now they've designed the battery built into the headband just like the Integra goggles. We can adjust the fit just here at the back, but the fit is another big improvement that they've made with the Goggles 3. And they've done quite a bit here to address some of the issues that some people were having. The biggest thing what they've done here is you can see that the strap is connected to this forehead piece. So all the pressure is now on your forehead. Unlike before in older goggles, the pressure was around the eyes, and that could cause some distortion. Sometimes you had to have this fairly tight, and when you put pressure around the eyes, it can distort things and make it not very clear. But now all the pressure is up top here. So it's very comfortable to wear, and it's not going to distort your vision. On top of that, they've added a hinge here. Now that doesn't allow you to flip the goggles up. As you can see, we can just hinge it back and forth a little bit. But what that does is it allows you to adjust the pressure against your face. That can enhance the fit and help with light leakage. Now the last thing that they've done here to improve the fit and help prevent light leakage for different face shapes and sizes is instead of having a foam face guard, It's now just a very thin rubber. And they can do that now because, as mentioned, the pressure is not around that foam where they need thick foam to make it comfortable. So this just now rests against the face, and this really thin rubber will mold to your face and should prevent light leakage for most people. And then again, you just adjust the tightness, the fit to your face. Just like the Goggles 2 and the Goggles Integra, we have fold-out antennas. And just like the Goggles 2 at the bottom, we can adjust our vision settings if you wear a prescription. And you can actually get it pretty close to most prescriptions. We can adjust the distance with these dials. And this year it's actually interesting because when you're adjusting for your prescription, you get a digital reading on the screen. So that way you can dial in your exact prescription. Now, when it comes to adjusting settings and accessing menu settings, there's now 2 ways in which we can do it. We have a joystick and a back button at the top there. But another new way of browsing the menu and changing settings is using the Motion 3. When you have the Motion 3 connected to the goggles and the drone is not in the air, it's just powered on the ground, you get a virtual pointer that's being controlled by the Motion 3. So you can go through all the menu settings, use the trigger as an input. You can use the reverse to go out of a menu or just click on an empty spot of the screen. You can easily go through your settings much quicker than using the buttons. That's actually how I've been changing all my settings since I've got the Avata 2. It works really, really well. Now, the virtual pointer doesn't work if the drone's up in the air, so then you do have to use the buttons, but another great new feature. Now, another feature that a lot of people are going to be extremely happy with is that the Goggles 3 now have defogging mode. By default, it's turned off. If you find your goggles are starting to fog up, you can go into the settings and turn them on. Right away, you'll hear a fan turn on. And I kind of like that DJI set that up that you have to turn that on and off manually. No sense in it coming on automatically when you don't really need it, because then you're going to have that noise of the fan running all the time. That's also going to use up extra battery and just can be a little bit distracting. After all, you don't always have fogging issues. It just, happens once in a while. And it's really easy to turn on if you notice that your goggles are starting to fog inside on the lenses. Now, another really nice feature of the Goggles 3 is Wi-Fi passenger mode. With DJI's older goggles, if you had a friend there flying with you, perhaps your spotter, and you wanted them to see what you're seeing, you could plug your phone into the USB-C port, and an observer could get a visual feed of what you're seeing. But this year, they have a new feature, a Wi-Fi version. We can enable that in the settings. Basically, you just swipe down from the top and enable Wi-Fi mode. On the Fly app, it's going to detect the goggles. You just connect to them. And now you have a wireless feed coming directly from the drone's camera. So that can be a little more convenient. You don't have to have somebody standing like 2 feet beside you while you're flying. Now let's take a look at the new Motion 3. It's quite a bit smaller than the original. You can see the two side by side here. It functions the same kind of inputs maneuver the drone, but it does have a few extra tricks up its sleeve. First of all, it supports that new AR pointer, as we already talked about in the goggles for changing settings. It supports that easy acro, which we've talked about. Just by a simple flick on the joystick, you can do a barrel roll, you can do a flip, you can do a drift. But one of the greatest improvements to it that I think is one of the greatest improvements anyways, is the new 2-stop trigger. You can see if we just press lightly, it stops there, and then there's a second press. And why that's important and why I really like that is with the old motion controller, with the original Avata, once you took the drone off, you had to be ready to go. If you set your motion down, the drone would just start going, spinning around, doing crazy stuff. But now, when you take off and the drone's hovering, it doesn't matter what you do with the motion controller. You no longer have to hit the brake button if you need to set it down for a minute. The drone won't take any input until you push into that first stop. But once you've pushed it in a little bit, then you can rotate the drone. It's not going to fly forward yet, but that allows you to position the drone in the direction you want to go. And that can be really handy if you get into a tight situation. Perhaps you're in and amongst some tree branches. All you have to do now is press that trigger in, and you can slowly rotate the drone to get yourself out. The drone won't start flying forward until you go to that second stop. And just like the other motion controllers, the farther you push the trigger in, the faster the drone will fly. And of course, just like the Motion 2, we can fly in reverse just by pushing up. It's got a scroll wheel at the side here, so we can adjust the camera angle. We can use that for navigating certain menus. And as mentioned, a double press will enable live view on the goggles. Now, another really nice feature of the Goggles 3, and if you have it paired with your Mini 4 Pro or Air 3, is you can now fly with the goggles and you can use your RC2 or RCN2 as a controller. Now, of course, with the Air 3, and the Mini 4 Pro. You can use the Motion 3 with it. It is fully compatible. But if you prefer to fly with a traditional controller, it is officially supported by DJI to use the RC2, or as mentioned, the RCN2. And it works really well. I've done several flights like that already. What happens is when you pair the goggles to the drone and you have it bound to this controller, basically this screen goes black. You can then do your flight with the goggles, get all your telemetry, change settings. If you power off the goggles or disconnect them, the screen will come back on the controller so you can still continue your flight. So definitely an exciting new release from DJI. I've made it very clear in many of my other videos that the original Avata was probably my all-time favorite drone. It's probably the drone that I have flown the most. Whether you want to capture beautiful, stunning footage or you just want to fly for fun and thrill, the Avata is a great choice for many people. I love flying through forests and capturing proximity shots, flying through trees. Those types of shots are too risky to take with a traditional drone, but with the Avata, you can get right into the smallest little openings. If you bump into something, most likely the drone's just going to bump right off. Because of its robust build and design and the prop guards, it's safe and it can withstand most crashes. But for many people, this is going to be the perfect choice if you're looking for a drone. Now, if the Avata 2 is a drone you're interested in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, as we will be making many videos about this. We're going to be covering it fully over the coming weeks and months. I've got many different videos planned, different tutorials. I've got a beginner's guide coming. I'll be uploading an unboxing later today or tomorrow, some tips and tricks, and of course, just a lot of flight footage. Well, folks, that's basically it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it and found it had value. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.